Welcome to the second part of this video on Microsoft Office, and this will focus on Microsoft Excel. So we'll start with Microsoft Excel, which is one of the more impenetrable pieces of software because initially it can seem very, very daunting. So normally, if I wanted to add up all the figures in this column, I would have to do something like I'd click on the cell below and I would type something like equals sum open brackets F6 colon to F29 close brackets, and F6 being the reference of this cell and F29 being the reference of that cell, and then it would add them all up for me, which is very useful, but also it's quite hard to remember exactly how you type out that formula. It is not very intuitive. But what we can do is that we can use a much more user-friendly way by making sure that we are on the Formulas tab up the top, and then there will be an Insert Function box here. So we can insert a function, and it will just allow us to see what it's going to do much more easily. So here, some of the functions that pop up is sum, a very useful one where you add them all up. You've got average, you've got the maximum, and you can type a brief description of the thing that you want to do in that box as well. So rather than mess around with formulas too much, a lot of the basic ones are there, and a lot of the more advanced ones are there as well, already done for you. So do feel free to use that box. So a quick demonstration, having removed the sum that we've put in before, we can just click on the box where we want the final thing to go. Click on Insert Function, now we pick Sum. And it's automatically told us that actually we probably want to add up all the things in the column above it, so F6 to F29. It already has guessed that that's what we want to do, so we can change that if we want to, but we don't. Just click OK, and it's done exactly the same thing as we did before, but we haven't had to remember all those complicated formulas. So now we've got over our initial fear of using formulas, let's concentrate on making our table look presentable. So what we can do, and there are a number of different ways to do this, we can select our table, just dragging around it, and under the Home tab at the top, we can pick Format as Table, and it will format it as a table, or you'll notice that once we bring the mouse over the highlighted boxes, there's a little box that appears in the bottom right called Quick Analysis, which you can also get to through Control and Q. So if we highlight the table, bring it down to the little box, then we can push this button, and within here there is Tables. So we format it as a table. It will give us an idea of what it's going to look like to start with. Format it as a table. It already looks a lot better. We can choose from the different styles, sort of fine, but we have a much more professional looking table at this point. It also gives us various options to filter now by the top ability. So we can filter now by name so that only one person is shown, and we can just do a lot more with the information than when it was just bare text. That box that appears in the bottom right of your selection also gives you various other useful options. So if we just select the amount, and then notice that box appears again. So we click on this box, and let's say we want to get a list of expenses that are over £100. So we can click on this greater than box, and if we type 100 into this box, it will highlight anything that is greater than £100. So let's say expenses over £100 need to be approved by a manager. Everything that is highlighted in red needs to be approved by a manager, and it allows you to manipulate the data in a very useful way. And we can move on to pivot tables now. So what we can do with a pivot table is select chart that we want, and we are just going to go to Insert at the top, the tab at the top, and then we're going to go to Recommended Pivot Tables. So if we push Recommended Pivot Tables, it automatically tells us that the two things that we are likely to want is sum of amount by name and sum of amount by type. Both of them are going to be useful, working out who spent what and also which categories they've been spent in. So we click sum of amount by name. What it's going to do is open up a new sheet down the bottom. So it's going to take us away from our original table and take us to another sheet. And what it's going to do is tell us exactly how much each person has spent, and that is another useful thing we can do with this. So we're going to right click it and we're going to copy it and bring it back to the first sheet that we were in. And then we're also going to do another pivot table, insert again, recommended pivot tables, and this time we're going to do sum of amount by type. And again, it's going to take us to a new sheet down the bottom. And here, what we're going to do is we are going to select this. This is showing us how much has been spent on each different item type. We're going to copy this and we're going to paste it back into the main sheet that we had before. So what we've got now is the original chart that looks much better than it did before, as well as two pivot tables which show us some very useful information about that data. As we paste these pivot tables in, we'll notice that the columns don't match up very well. The width doesn't look very good. So one of the options that we might have is to choose wrap text up here. So we've selected the text that we want to wrap, and then we choose wrap text under the home tab at the top. So wrap text will mean that the text will fully appear within the column, but that doesn't look great. It doesn't look good when it's on the same row as another table, so that's not our best option. Another thing that we can do is see the column separator where my mouse is at the top. If I double click that, it will automatically adjust the width of this column in order to fit all the text in. So by double clicking those, it just makes the whole thing look prettier and work better than it was before.